Well, we are closing in on pro volleyball coming back to San Diego, and a man who is helping that become a reality is Jeremy Waller joining us on the Honest Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley. Jeremy is the VP of Operations and General Manager of the San Diego Mojos, a little bit more than a week or so from their home opener. A lot of excitement around that. His schedule is busy and busy, so we're excited to not only talk about the team, the Pro Volleyball Federation, but also your story, Jeremy, your upbringing and everything about you on the human side, the personal side. So thanks so much. I'm Bryan Fenley, and thanks so much for being a part of this.
Brian, honestly, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It really is an honor and a pleasure, and I'm excited for this discussion. I've definitely been looking forward to it.
Well, me as well. And you are, in getting to know your story, you're a very much an athlete through and through. Those are your roots. In never being able to turn off that athlete gene, how has that made you a better GM and VP of operations with the Mojos?
Oh man, I come from a sports family. So my dad, my uncles, they're all heavily involved in professional baseball, and I'd say for myself, I'm very much athlete centric. I've always just kind of been trained, developed, coached, if you will, to focus on the athlete and the athlete's needs. And I think as an organization, and especially as a GM, you want to make sure that your athletes are very happy, that they're being taken care of, that they're being respected. I think over time you've seen an evolution in the treatment of athletes. And I think as you find more people that have navigated the space from that perspective, they're able to identify that, like, look, there's a better way of going about these things. So, at least for myself, I think the athletes are the talent. They're who everyone comes to see, and they should be treated accordingly. They should be respected. They should be protected. And then obviously given opportunities to amplify their voices just the same.
How do you do that? How are you able to amplify their voices and make sure that their sentiments are being heard, that how they feel is being validated by you?
Honestly, for me, it always comes to respect and trust. Those are the two essential elements. I don't care if it's a professional relationship, if it's a personal relationship. Those two, elements have to be present. And so, right now we're brand new and we're still navigating a lot of things. We're a startup business, and every startup business is going to have its kinks. But I also, in addition to being an athlete, I also have a business that's in the tech space, and one thing we always say is technology isn't perfect, but we can always make it better. And I see the same for my dealings with my players in the organization. Like, we aren't perfect, but we can always get better. And I think it's the willingness to engage in that dialogue, and then hear people with compassion, with respect, and then show trust in your ability to try to, make some of those changes and adjustments. And I think, over time that a relationship evolves into something of great value.
The trust that not only you've been able to bestow on others and that they feel from you, but the trust that you have in yourself over the course of your life and your career and that self belief. You look at the trust, you look at the self belief. How have those two tenets, how are you over the course of your life?
You know what? I think we all have a purpose. I think every person has a purpose in life. When you think about the difficulty of conceiving, like my wife right now, she's pregnant. You think about the millions of sperm, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, there's a conception that occurs. I don't think it's by chance. And I think that you have to have what I often refer to as like a life compass. And I think a lot of people, may struggle with knowing or identifying what their life purpose is. And I don't think it has to be overly philosophical or extremely complicated. It could be very basic in general. Like, at least for myself, I remember being 12 and I was sitting in church one time and they had asked, like, what's your purpose in life? And it occurred to me that my purpose was to have a positive impact on the people around me. And so it's that lens that I try to view all my relationships, all my interactions. And that's really kind of what I've held true to. I'm not one. It's funny when our president first got hired, he had asked me, what are your career goals? What are the things that you want to do? And full honesty is I don't really have goals. I just have a life compass and I follow my passion and it puts me where I'm supposed to be. And, I think too many times people get stuck on milestones or what other people are doing or when they should achieve it or what they should achieve. And for me, that's not for me to tell. One thing I always tell my athletes is there's a difference between an athlete and a reporter. The athlete is engaged in the action. The reporter is telling the story. So it's not my job to tell the story in a sense. It's my job just to commit to my action and follow my life compass.
Well, that's so fascinating. And you mentioned philosophical. You strike me as somebody who is very philosophical. Where did that come from? You being that way, and you identifying that that's the way you are and the way you think.
I did grow up kind of like with a faith-based background, so I think that that had an element to it. But always have been the person that have always asked the why. At times I probably drove my dad and my parents nuts because I was the person where, and I still am, where if you ask me to do something but I don't understand the why, I'm going to continue to ask questions. And I also think that you know, there's nothing new under the sun. And so if you can find phrases, quotes, books that will give you insight, and kind of help you refine your life compass and help you refine your purpose, well, then it's imperative that you equip yourself with those tools and, you follow that compass in the direction that it takes you.
How much can your life compass and your purpose change over time? And how have you seen that change or have an adjustment based upon your life experiences?
I'd say the compass remains the same, to be quite honest with you, at least for myself. Everyone might be different. I would say that there's definitely a refinement in the accuracy and the ability to identify what is, for this analogy, my true north, in ensuring that I maintain that sense of direction. Um, but I would say the only constant we know in life is change, so to say that I don't change, I think that that would be a concern because it means I'm the same person today that I was a year ago. I also am a firm believer. There's a quote that I had once heard that who you were isn't who you are, and who you are isn't who you're going to be. And so I think when I take that and I align it with my compass, it's the understanding that I'm always evolving, I'm always going to improve, I'm going to make mistakes, and even if it's subconscious or consciously, you're trying to figure life out. But the reality of it is that you have to learn from those lessons, and you just got to continue to get better. And I think that's how I change. If anything, it's from becoming more sound and convicted in my beliefs and in my purpose and really who I am.
How close are you to figuring life out?
I don't think you ever figure it out. To be quite honest with you, I think that you find more ways of maneuvering around a variety of obstacles and adversity, and they're always going to have different elements, different depths, different peaks. But at the end of the day, I think it's the constant drive to overcome those moments where you really take a sit back or a seat, I should say, and you sit back and you look at it and you say, well, if I overcame this and I was able to get through it, well, then I can keep going. And uh, I'm not a person that really panics. I know for a lot of people, like when they experience moments of stress and difficulty, there's a sense of anxiousness that can set in. Um, and I'm a firm believer that almost every problem has been experienced by someone else. And there was an outcome, whether adverse or favorable, and it was solely dependent on their choice. So if I want to have a favorable outcome, then what tools do I have to help me navigate this to make sure that that's the side that I come out on?
Those tools that you've been able to use, how have they shown themselves in the growth of your upstart franchise with the San Diego Mojos and getting people to see eye to eye with your vision too?
Yeah, honestly, it's really it's a unique experience. So I had a startup, and I actually have had a couple startups, and those were great in preparing me for this opportunity, but I've never had been a part of a startup that was so public, right? And it has a definitive sunset, if you will, where you're working in the night and then boom, here you go. You got to release this to the general public, and everyone's going to have an opinion on the quality of talent, the appearance, the branding, and everything. Um, but what I would say more than anything, it's going in with the willingness and the openness to continue to learn. That's been the main aspect of this, and trying to just put my heart into it. And I'm one of those people that I wear my heart on my sleeve, but it's also because I care so much about uh, having that impact on other people. And so like I said, you're going to make mistakes. None of us are going to be perfect, but I do think that this has been, or the tools that I've equipped myself with have really been beneficial in navigating this landscape and ensuring that, we do create an organization that the community of San Diego really does fall in love with.
Falling in love with this team that you work with, how are fans and in what way are they going to start to fall in love with your athletes?
You know, Honestly, early on, after I had, taken on this position and having several interactions with Carrie Walsh Jennings, who's, the managing partner of our team and an Olympic great, I really sat back and I thought about what do we want this organization to be synonymous with? And it really was derived from who Carrie is. And when you get to know Carrie, she has a fierce competitive spirit, but she has a servant's heart. And I think that that's what you're going to find in this organization. I think, especially in professional sports, um, people, and maybe even just in life, they feel like those two elements can't coexist.
Hmm.
Oftentimes people that are competitive, it's only about me, and I'm willing to do anything that I have to do to win. And there's certain characteristics or attributes that are associated with that type of mindset. But for myself, I think when that first serve occurs at a match, we're here to win, and make no mistakes about it. And we want to compete against the best. And my uncle has this saying when I was growing up as a kid, like it didn't matter if we were playing basketball, football, whatever. He's like, you better bring your best because I only want to play against the best. And I always thought about what that meant. And ultimately, it means it tells me who I am. It tells me how value or the value that I bring to this sport, to this space. And so I think that that's important for our team. And yeah, we've had a rough start, but it's character building. And that's where you really get to figure out, who you're made of, or I'm sorry, what you're made of. And then the serve it aspect of it is, you know, we're all here and we all should always find a way to contribute, and I've never heard anybody be criticized for, vast contributions. And so if you know that you would like to receive contributions, gifts, input from people, well, then you also have to be willing to share that just the same. And I think that by displaying, in a very authentic way, who we are, what we represent, the trials and adversity that we've overcome, you'll find that there's an alignment with others that say, you know what, I'm not alone. And in that, there's strength, and there's strength for us, and there's strength for those that are on the receiving side of it just the same.
Jeremy Waller is with me. He is VP of Operations and General Manager of the San Diego Mojos. I'm Bryan Fenley, a volleyball broadcaster for ESPN. I feel like in so many ways, Jeremy, you're an old soul. I can feel that from you. And that's as an empath myself, I can feel the depth to our conversation, and I can feel the way in which you also go beneath the surface in everything you do. And how is life more meaningful? You talked about the purpose of life and how much more meaningful it is when you're able to have that depth. But to have that depth going into, let's just say your season opener here coming up in a little over a week as we record this on Valentine's Day. What to you is going to satisfy or gratify you with a depth of what that season opener is going to look like?
Well, and it is our home opener.
Oh,
So we've had
excuse
two
me.
games.
My apologies. My apologies. Yeah.
It's
Yes. Sorry.
okay.
Home opener from Viejas. Yes.
Personally, I'm going to say it's the look on people's faces. Um, I'm a firm believer that there's words that people hear and there's words that people feel. And when somebody says something that you feel, you can see how it resonates within them based on their expressions, their actions, their mannerisms. And so I want to see how people feel when they're in the arena. I want to see how they feel when they're walking in, and more importantly, when they're walking out. And if I see a feeling of excitement, of joy, that's going to tell me that everything that we've done up until this point has all been worth it. All the long hours, sleepless nights, everything that's in between, that's going to validate it. And more importantly, it provides motivation for the future.
Well, as we wrap up this conversation, Jeremy, unquestionably, you are a home run hire for the Mojos. And hey, I think you are just the best for what you're doing right now. And the Mojos are so lucky to have you. And on the 23rd, that home opener is going to be
Yes,
taking
sir.
place. It's going to be a lively, exciting atmosphere. And behind it all in his team is Jeremy Waller, who brings it. And he is an athlete through and through, using that as sort of an influence to him and to connect. And I'm glad we got to connect in a way in which we have a deep conversation. I find those so much more meaningful. Jeremy, I'm Bryan Fenley. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and sharing your story and your vision and what you've been up to and all the excitement around this first year of San Diego Mojo's volleyball.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate the opportunity. And, hey, if you're in the Southern California region, come check us out. Come to a match at the Viejas Arena. You go to san diego mojo vb.com. You can see our schedule, purchase tickets there, and stay up to date on the latest information with regard to our organization.